The negative is conceded to observation 1, in which the affirmative defines the key terms, and to observation 2, in which the affirmative establishes the criteria for military readiness. So please direct your attention to the negative's first argument in observation 3, subpoint A, in which the negative argues that we currently have the biggest defense budget in the world. In cross-examination, my partner asked how they know that our spending is enough, and I think that's a fair point. How do we know that our budget is enough? I know it's the biggest in the world, but what does that mean? So basically, so what? So what that, like, why does it matter that or how do you know that just because our budget is the biggest in the world, that it's big enough? An example from current times is the Los Angeles Dodgers opened last season with the biggest budget in baseball, and yet they got beaten by the team with the 18th biggest budget in baseball. So the amount of funds you have doesn't equate to whether or not you're going to win. And an example from military history is the U.S. winning the Revolutionary War against Great Britain, despite Great Britain having one of the best funded armies in the world. My second argument is that even though we have, the second argument is that we have to have the biggest budget because the U.S. has many enemies. Two of our leading opponents are Russia and China. And the article which the negative cited says that in 2017, Russia and China had the second and third most talented militaries in the world behind the U.S. And so I think that the U.S. has to have the budget that it has because our opponents are right up there with us. I think that there's not as much of a gap between our military and other militaries as they would like to claim, and I think that we have to have the budget that we have. And I believe that, and so therefore I want you to extend my, in the negative second argument in subpoint A is that the U.S. is actually increasing the world's largest defense budget. And my first argument is that we have to increase the defense budget because of inflation. If we kept the budget as it is, that budget would gradually be able to buy less and less. And so it's just part of economics is that money, the dollar is losing value over time. And so it's not good enough just to keep the budget as it is. It has to actually continually be getting bigger just to be able to buy the same amount of weapons and technology. And my second argument is that the defense actually provides evidence which proves the U.S. needs to increase its budget. The negative pointed out that China's defense budget increased by 5.4% in the last fiscal year, and the U.S. needs to be able to keep up with China. It's not good enough for the U.S. to sit back and say we have the biggest budget, so we're fine. The U.S. needs to be constantly maintaining readiness by always having the biggest budget, and when China increases its budget, it's important that we do the same. Therefore, I want you to extend observation 3 to subpoint A, in which the affirmative argues that the U.S. military is not well funded. In subpoint B, the negative's first argument is that the affirmative is being too particular by demanding that all ships be properly maintained. My first argument is that the negative is wrong. They conceded to observation 1, subpoint B, in which we define prepared as being at maximum potential. Being at maximum potential means that all of our ships are properly maintained. So how are we at maximum potential if we have ships that are not properly maintained and which in turn is allowing troops not to get the training they need? So I would like you to please extend observation 3 subpoint C, in which the affirmative argues, or observation 3 subpoint B, in which the affirmative argues that the U.S. military is not well trained. And I now want to give further evidence to support the affirmative's argument that the U.S. military is unprepared for future threats. U.S. military readiness is the lowest it has been in decades. John Cooper, former officer of the U.S. Air Force National Interest, a magazine on foreign policy, published February 14, 2017. Last week on Capitol Hill, several top U.S. military leaders from across the armed services presented a sobering case to Congress. U.S. military readiness is the lowest it has been in decades, leaving it unprepared to defend America's interests at home and abroad.
Time.
I now stand open for cross-examination.
When in your observation 3 criteria, observation 3 on subpoint A, you say that Russia and China are second and third.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know by how much by how far behind they are?
Yes, the US budget, I believe, is at 700 billion for this year, and China is at 215 billion. I'm not sure about Russia.
Okay, so that means Russia's below China?
Yes.
The maximum number could very possibly.
I'm sorry, actually, the Russia and China, it just said that they have the second or third best militaries in the world. It wasn't saying they had the second or third
Okay.
biggest budget.
You said, also in the sub-point A, you said the US, dollar is increasing from inflation?
It's decreasing in value because of
Decreasing in value?
inflation.
Do you know about, the Russian ruble or anything like that, foreign money?
I do not know what its value is.
You don't? Okay. Let's see. What's in the next page? Can you, restate for me why you think the military is not properly trained?
We believe the US military is not properly trained because, at least one of the reasons we believe this is because on Navy ships, their tours are being extended, and that means that their maintenance periods are being delayed, and so they're being used more, and so now the maintenance gets stretched out, and so the sailors are then not getting the proper